Good evening. The time is 6:30. I'll now call to order the Board of Education meeting for Madison School District number 162. This time, vote. And I'll ask the secretary to please call the roll.
Mr. Bean? Mrs. Gordon? Here. Mrs. McCray?
Present.
Dr. Leatherwood? Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Mrs. Hutchinson?
Present.
Mrs. Ware? Present.
Thank you so much. I'll ask the superintendent if there are any communications, announcements, or schedules.
Thank you, Mr. President. May 8th, we have our annual band concert, and we're so happy this year. It's not that COVID has disappeared, it's just that we're being cautious, but all of our bands will be coming together. And so I anticipate almost 400 young people. They're in the process of becoming, but we will start with our baby bands and evolve upwards. So I hope that we have just an enthusiastic group of parents, which I know we will, and everyone else to come out on May 8th at 7 p.m. at GSU. We were at GSU last night. Different kind of experience for us with the older children, and we were there quite late, but we're happy that they're in our district and open their doors to us. On May 21st at 6:30 p.m., the District 162 Board will meet again. But on May 29th, all roads lead to Tenley Park, where we have our graduation. So more information will be coming out as we solidify the numbers, because we're in the process also of planning summer school, and I commented on this before, but you'll see it in the numbers of students that we, when we finalize the graduation, that we're bottom heavy. Our enrollment really has not changed, but we have many more younger children. So the class is going to be at 8th grade, smaller than it has been. Actually, it's smaller than it's been since I've been here. I say that because we're under 400 at Huth, and I think only Mrs. McCray goes back to, I don't want to say the good old days, but
Good old days.
the days when I came here, the Huth housed 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and we were almost 1,000 in the same building. The board in its wisdom reorganized, and our grade level centers became 7th and 8th grade at the Huth, the 4th, 5th, and 6th at the Indiana and the Sauk. But we've never been below 600 children, and we're now below 400 at the Huth. So the graduating class will be smaller this year. But still, we're at Tenley Park on May 29th. And then we added one day to our calendar. You'll remember that we had one snow day. Could we have, had we not anticipated inclement weather, could we have had a e-learning day? Yes. But what we thought would happen, and what was predicted to happen, was that it was going to rain in the morning and we would get snow later on in the afternoon after we dismissed. We would with that as a rich township, and all of us did the same thing. So we must add one day, so our school district will close June 3rd at 10:45 a.m.
Take that,
Please, thank you.
This time, it's an audience to visitors, specifically pertaining to agenda items only. If there's anyone any visitor who would like to have an audience with us pertaining to just the items that are in the agenda, now is your opportunity. Seeing none, we will now move to the approval of the consent agenda.
Mr. President?
Move to approve the consent agenda dated April 17th, 2024, and every item contained therein.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on this?
Yes, Mr. President. I'd like to bring to your attention the resignation of Ken George. Ken George is the band teacher at the Indiana. He's been the band teacher at the SOG. He was here when I came, but his dream always has been to be a high school band teacher, and we don't want to announce this separate and apart, but I know that in Orland Park we will be welcoming a man that has served us well, and he will be leading one of the high school bands in the Orland Park area. So I do want to acknowledge that and to thank him publicly for all of his years of service. But everyone has a dream, and he fulfilled his. Last night, I think you heard the strength of the Huth, Mrs. Calvin, as Mr. Harrigan showed pictures, or really Mr. Lyons pictures of the students that he had in 7th and 8th grade. So you can see we all evolve upwards. But finally, Mr. George has his chance, and so we're very happy for him, but we do thank him. Secondly, we'd like to congratulate Mr. Holmes, who's sitting there. You see that he's going to take a paternity leave, and you know that's not new, but relatively new. At one time, we had maternity leaves, we didn't have paternity leaves. But he will have his first child this summer, and we congratulate him, and he'll be away from us a little while, but he will be back. So congratulations, Mr. Holmes.
Thank you. Congratulations. Get your sleep now. Very good. Any other discussion on the approval of the consent agenda? Hearing none, Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Gordon?
Aye.
Mrs. McCray?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Hutchinson?
Aye.
Mrs. Williams?
Aye.
Is there a superintendent's report?
Yes, Mr. President. First, I'd like to draw the board's attention to the enrollment, and we are up slightly over last month, 24-28. But I'd also like to mention to the board that downstairs, as you can see, we've started the re-enrollment process for next year. So there are parents that are coming in. But one thing that is of note, you see the Arcadia and the Madison continue to grow, and they're at 547 now as almost a closing enrollment. We're just assuming that parents at this time of the year would not seek to bring the children in because, as you know, we're in the process of closing. But Arcadia at 547, and I talked previously about how we're bottom heavy. The Huth at 380, the Illinois 389, Indiana 181. But I do want to mention publicly and to the board that it is our anticipation to open a 4th grade class at the Indiana this year, and also there are some parents at the Arcadia that might have a child at the Indiana that would want to put both children at the same location, so they will have that opportunity if they choose to. The Madison at 405, the Richton is now 207, the Sauk 278, and we have 41 children who are outplaced outside the district for a total of 24-28. A dream come true, and you never know. I guess there's some kind of an adage, if you build it, they will come. And you know, we built a commercial kitchen, and we opened in September, but it was our dream, it was our intent, not really a dream, our intent, that as a district, as a board, as an administration, we would prepare nutritious meals for other districts other than ours. it would accomplish more than one purpose. And the first purpose, of course, we no longer want our children to have frozen food that we simply warm up in a convection oven. What we want is them to have fresh food every day that they enjoy, and that we're not throwing away most of the food. But the second goal was that we make this economically feasible for ourselves and for others. And so Mr. England, who will be joining us when we go out to bid.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Good evening, board members. Good evening. So I'm happy to report that the Illinois State Board of Education did give us the green light today to publish the bid, so that will be going out next week. As Dr. Davis mentioned, there are 7 districts total, including District 162, that are joining together. They are Chicago Ridge 127.5, Atwood Heights 125, Alsip 126, Tinley Park 146, Park Forest 163, and of course Southland and District 162. So a total of about 11,000 meals per day is what will be produced out of the kitchen with this group. So it is a joint RFP, or request for proposal. And as I said, that'll be open, or that'll be put out for review next week. And we will have a mandatory meeting for anybody who wishes to propose on it. That'll be on May 2nd over at the new kitchen. And we anticipate opening the proposals on June 10th. So there's a requirement that you have 45 days between the time you put it out and the time you actually open, which is why it's quite a bit of a delay there until June to open those up. So we are very excited. All the districts are one accord in terms of the language and the priorities and the rubric and all those sorts of things. There's still a lot of work to be done as we're just getting started now, but one big hurdle was getting through that state board process, which can be a little bit daunting.
Mr. England, we're going from what number now to the 11,000?
Right now, we serve, in terms of total meals, around 4,000 meals a day. So we're going up to about 11,000. That's an estimate based on current meals. Our hope would be that participation increases even more from there, particularly for some of the districts that don't have access to a kitchen such as this, and now will.
So we are with Quest Foods, but there are a long list of vendors that you receive from the state board, and they will all have an equal opportunity to bid.
Correct.
Are there questions for Mr. England about that particular adventure?
Exciting.
Thank you, sir. Most of you were at our book signing event, and we published our own book, and I'm so proud of the teachers and administrators that did such an excellent job of producing our first publication, Mr. President, our first publication, because we're not prepared to share this, but we're already in the planning stage of where we're going from here. But they brought their own families. It was just a marvelous engagement. I do thank Dr. Johnny Thomas, Superintendent of 227, for coming out. I want to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Sandra Thomas, who is the superintendent for the Special Education District, and Dr. Rice, who's also a superintendent, and she came with about 25 books. So we've been getting orders for books from other districts. Our purpose is not to raise money. Our purpose is to share information. And this one publication, instead of buying a number of publications, tells you everything that you need to know about implementing a standard-based grading system. So the other thing that I thought was it was interesting, and the planning of it was just excellent. So thank you to Dr. Mays and to Mrs. Dr. Healy, I know she's here, and to Mrs. Houston. Mrs. Houston, I'm not sure that everyone knows that, but she's president of the Ridgeton Park Library, so she's probably convening her meeting as we're sitting here. But they did a magnificent job. But from each school, a parent spoke about their experience with standard-based grading, and I think the rollout was excellent. I know it was under Parent University, but now we're in the process next week of beginning to evolve to the third grade with standard-based grading. But I did share with all the parents that were there. I don't know what they thought about what I said, but I'm sharing it with you. 5 years ago, Harvard University led the way and had a press release that said, in essence, grades on standard tests are irrelevant, and we're going to accept students not based on that, based on something. That's interesting because the only information that Harvard or any other school has, if you're not looking at the ACT or the SAT, are the grade point averages, okay? But for example, if you use our grade point average, an A here is 93 to 100, but down the street, we're not pointing any particular way. A's are 89 to 100, and some of the district, that's an A, 90 to 100. So all over the United States are different grading systems. So if you're just going to compare grade point averages and what you would for admission, then you would have to know what those grades mean. And so we saw the applications change, and they didn't just ask for the grade point average, they asked for the grading scale, which actually tells you what it means, because it can mean any number of things. But now Harvard has issued a press release that says, effective immediately, they will go back to consideration of the scores on the ACT and the SAT. We anticipated this. And so now you see most of the East Coast schools following, and so will everybody else. So I say that because I think this is magnificent, and we'll continue to use it because it provides information to the parents as to how to help their child and exactly what the grade means with standard-based gradings, because it tells you the areas of strengths as well as deficiencies. However, the big picture world, when you get to the higher grades, to the high schools, and certainly to the colleges, ACT, SAT. ACT, SAT. But Harvard led the way 5 years ago, and they're leading the way back in the other direction. So just something for you to think about. But that's where we are. But still, I'm so proud of all of the teachers and administrators who did a magnificent job. We had something called a solar eclipse. I don't know if we have any pictures.
Oh, Dr. Davis?
Yes, sir.
Before you move off of the standard grade, I want to take the opportunity. I was not present at Meet the Authors, although I was really wanted to attend. I really want to take this opportunity to congratulate you for your leadership and guidance on this, and for Drs. Mays, Healy, and Ms. Houston, et al., because it is et al., both a wonderful photograph of all of the educators and administrators who were authored on this. It is a fantastic accomplishment, and I want to salute you all tonight. Additionally, selfishly, since I wasn't present for the book signing, I bought a stack of books. So those present, authors present, I would love if you would sign these books, because I intend to share them with educators in my life and pass it on to them, to give them with the wonderful collection that you put together. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Any other comments from the board?
Mr. President, go ahead. I missed it, but I didn't know about it. I'm sitting here going through my emails. We were notified by email about the event.
Ma'am.
I didn't get it. When was the event?
May.
Last Thursday. It was last Thursday.
Last Thursday.
Yeah, April 11th.
Then I apologize.
I'm sorry I missed it. It was not intentional.
But it was a wonderful evening. It truly, truly was. But if I could tell you about something else that is, so we can put it on our calendars now.
Mrs. Ware had the comment as well.
I did have
Oh, I'm
one
sorry.
question. That's okay. It was a lovely event. I did make it, but I did have a question. Were the teachers given any kind of extra bonus or monetary gift for participating in the book?
No. We asked for volunteers. We had a staff development meeting. 31 teachers attended, and then we wrote out the concept And then we sent an invitation out for those who might wish to write. The response was hesitant but immediate, because to put your thoughts to writing and then to publish them is an entirely different thing. But no, they did not receive any money. They received our thanks, but they have not. The board, of course, may decide if you want to direct me to do something else, but no one asked and no one did.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Okay. May 14th, and if we can all make a notation of this, and we will send you something. Our athletic director for 162 and for Southland has been Homer Thomas since 2012. Mr. Thomas has been, he's a legend, I think, in the world of athletics. He came to us from Richards High School. He's been involved over the years in track and tennis and everything, and unfortunately, in 2023, he encountered some health challenges that he could not overcome. But on May 14th, we have our athletic dinner at the Tinley Park Holiday Inn. We would certainly like to invite you. And specifically, we're going to ask Mr. Jeffrey Johnson, because I know he knows him in another way. But we are naming a trophy after our athletic director, Homer Thomas. We're going to, we have here on our team, she's not here tonight, but Yvonne Williams, who went to high school as well as college with him, will be talking about her experiences. And so we don't just want him to go off into retirement without us expressing our gratitude, even though I don't think that he's going to be able to answer us. Mr. Lights is going to make sure that there's a Zoom link, and his daughter is going to be there with him. So he will see and he will hear everything that we have to say. But there is going to be the annual Homer Thomas Athlete of the Year trophy that we'll be presenting for the first time. And then downstairs, we have a permanent exhibit that over the years it will list the names of the students that we're honoring. But we would be remiss if we did not do something. His goal, he shared with me a year ago, that he did not want to come back to work. He just wanted to be able to walk into this building. If he can't do that, then we will go virtually to him. And so May 14th at 7 p.m., we will be at the Holiday Inn for our athletic banquet. But our purpose, really, certainly we want to honor our children, but we want to honor him for a lifetime of service. So that's something that I'm really looking forward to.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
And we will remind everyone of that day. Summer school. We're less than 30 days out and closing, but the plans for summer school are in place. The Richton will house our younger children, pre-kindergarten. The Madison is going to have mandatory summer school. The Sauk and at Southland, 7th and 8th grade students who are in mandatory summer school, which means that they have a 2.0 or less in terms of their grade point average, will be in mandatory summer school. But the most exciting venture is the Stream Summer School, which will be housed at the Illinois. We anticipate a minimum of 400 children that will be there as they use every creative means that we have in order to stimulate learning. But something that I'm personally really excited about, we've been looking, and we finally have actually she's a parent. She had 2 children to come through 162 and through Southland. She's Japanese. So we're going to have a pilot Japanese program in our Stream program this summer. And what we are looking for is a teacher that could go into the middle or high school and teach Japanese. You might think, why? I believe that we're one of the few countries where most of our citizens are not bilingual. And we know that the Asian world is becoming really more and more prominent, but we've always taught Spanish. We'll continue to do that. We have French here in the district, but I want to see what will happen this summer as we introduce Japanese to our younger children. I think it's going to be fascinating. But that will be housed at the Illinois. And Mrs. Atwood, some of you may know her as a parent. She said, I don't know if I'm a natural teacher. She is a natural teacher, very articulate woman. But both of her children spent their summers in Japan. And as they entered high school, we did not have advanced placement Japanese because we only had 2 children. But she wanted them to take the advanced placement exam. The Board of Education had to make an exemption that even though we didn't have a class, they said it's impossible. They not only passed the exam, the exam for AP is scored on a scale of 1 to 5, they had a 5. They are Japanese. So they received their credits as they went on. But what will happen with our younger children if we begin this class, so we're beginning this summer, but we are looking for a permanent teacher that would teach them Japanese. And I think it's just going to be fascinating. I hope we get to, and I have an opportunity this summer to visit. So I don't know if there are comments about introducing Japanese, but we are. But I'll give you.
Fantastic.
Okay, all right. But we are this summer, and she came in. She said it would be wonderful to be able to be around the community because she lives here in our community and have someone to greet her in her native language. So I just thought, this is a wonderful idea. So, but there is one problem, and so we're not going to end on a very positive note. But I'm going to ask Mrs. Dusky to come forward, and that's measles. I'm sure everyone is following this on television. It's an issue, but the measles had disappeared from our environment for years and years and years. However, one of the issues that we have now, and I think it's unique to COVID, where Mrs. Dusky, that's what I think, where parents aren't necessarily taking or did not necessarily take children for all of the exams and vaccinations that they need. And so we have just a few children that have religious exemptions because, that's allowed under the law. But what is most dangerous, and Mrs. Dusky is going to talk about that, are children that have the first shot, but their parents have not taken them to get the second shot, which means you don't have total immunization. So, Mrs. Dusky.
Well, welcome. Thank you, board. It's nice to be here again with the CDC and IDPH news for you. So we're just going to start with an overview of what are the measles. And the measles are a serious, highly contagious disease caused by a virus. The virus is spread easily through the air when an infected person coughs or sneezes, or by direct contact with the infected nose or throat secretions. And since we've had this recent outbreak in Chicago, we have been contacted already by Will County and Cook County because a couple of our children had been at the emergency room when children had been brought in. So we had to then verify that those kiddos had both immunizations, and they did. So they were okay and protected at that time. So how common is the measles? It's usually in preschool age children, and for children who have not had both vaccinations. It also continues into adulthood and teenage years if they have not been vaccinated. Measles occur primarily in late winter and early spring, which is right now. And I think that's part of the reason that the outbreak is pretty prominent in Chicago. So what are some of the symptoms, in case you're worried? Symptoms of measles include a rash that starts on the face, the neck, and then spread. You get a high fever, a runny nose, and a cough, and red, watery eyes. The fever starts about 10 days after you've been exposed. So you're not contagious, though, until you get the rash, and then you're only contagious for up to 5 days. So people who get the measles are contagious only for 5 days and then can return to work. But those, and I'll get to that in a minute, children who don't have both vaccinations is a different story. So again, when you stay home, measles are very contagious. Don't go to work, school, or social activities. Measles are contagious when symptoms are first noticed until 5 days after the rash appears. So treatment includes bed rest, lots of fluids, and medicine for fever and headache. Antibiotics do not help either cure or to prevent measles. And there's no antiviral drug to treat the measles. It's just you have to let it run its course. Can measles be prevented? And this is where EPA and we come in. They can be prevented with the vaccine. The vaccine is recommended for children at 12 months, so babies get that shot. And then a second shot is added when they come into kindergarten. The good news is if children haven't been vaccinated, they can get the first vaccine, and then they can get the second vaccine within 72 hours, then they're considered fully vaccinated. Also, if they only have one vaccine, they're considered 93% protected, but that's not 100% protected. So we require both. And then if you get the measles, you acquire immunity after the illness permanently. So the state now is requiring us to be more proactive. So they are asking that all children be vaccinated, and any children that have a medical exemption or only have one vaccination are considered unprotected. We currently have close to 50 religious exemptions, but we have several children who only have had one vaccination for a variety of reasons. So in those cases, all of those children, if they are near a confirmed case of measles, have to be excluded from school for 21 days after the last case. So if there's a case on Tuesday, they're excluded for 21 days. But then if another case occurs on Friday, they're excluded for an additional 21 days until there's no more cases in the building. But with a doctor's note, we can provide homebound services for those children. And with the 2 children that we mentioned earlier, we did provide remote learning under the 5-day act that was, given for COVID at that time. But the state does allow us to provide homebound instruction for those children who have to be excluded for 21 plus days. So what steps have we taken? Well, we have identified all of our unprotected youth due to religious or medical exemptions and those who only have one vaccination. We have provided each of the families of the unprotected children, informing them of the mandate of the 21 plus days. And we have also made calls to each of the families to make sure they've gotten the information, they have the pamphlet, they have the information that shows what measles are, and then we've offered assistance to families. So we've given them, options of Aunt Martha's, their pediatrician, to get the second vaccination if they want it. Many parents, we found have already brought in evidence that they have the second vaccination. They just haven't given that to us prior to now, so they are considered protected. And then we documented all of those calls. So I did also speak to Advocate, our little Ronald McDonald House bus came the other day. It was at SOF when I was there, and I asked the nurse there if they would be able to provide us just MMR vaccinations for our students who are unprotected, and they said they would be able to do that if they could do up to 20 a day. So we also have that option. So I think we're in good shape. We know who they are, we know how to protect them, and we have reached out to the families to make sure the families know that they need to be protected. Okay,
Thank you, Mrs. Stuskey, but we are live streaming, Mr. President. Please, 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 parents, if we have contacted you and if you know that your child is not totally protected, make that a priority because otherwise they would be out almost until the time we close. There's just there's no protection against measles other than we have not had, but that could happen. And there are a large number of them, not necessarily the religious objections, but those that have only had one vaccination. So everyone that's listening to this or has children and their family, even if they're not with us, it doesn't really matter. Please pay some attention to that because it seems to be spreading. I think today they said there were 57 cases in our state. I don't know where it came from. I know, what is said on the news, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that all the children are protected, and the only way we do that is through a vaccination. Once they come in contact with someone with measles, and there's really nothing that we can do other than isolate those children. And we do not want them to be at home. So, Mr. President, that concludes my report, but if there are any questions about anything, then I'm certainly willing to answer.
Any questions from the board? I think Mrs. Dusky reiterate the points that you're making, that there is a vaccine, there is protection for all children. And then, if I heard correctly, the process is that those who are considered unprotected, when we identify someone, if we identify someone in the school, all of them have to leave the school.
Correct.
And then what can be done for all 21 days? Are we in a position to teach them remotely all 21 days?
We're in a position to do that, but we know as a result of what we experienced during COVID that yes, we can educate them. Can we educate them to the degree that we would if they were in our schools? No. But the other thing that worries me, they're isolated. And in some cases, they're at home by themselves because parents do have to work. And so we want them to take this as a warning. It's out there. Just because it's not currently, as far as we know, in one of our schools, doesn't mean, because children play together. Mrs. Dusky received the call from the Cook County Board of Health. They were just in the emergency room where someone else had, so they wanted us to check. So this is an extremely contagious disease. And so if everyone would rethink this and please get the necessary vaccinations, we would appreciate it.
Very good, thank you. And just one other thing, we cut you off when you did have some additional positive news. You didn't tell us about the eclipse. Did you want to revisit that?
Yes, I do. We didn't know what to expect, and different things happened at different schools. We do have some footage that we want to share with you from the Arcadia. I don't know that the older children were quite as much involved, but Mrs. Hall, I see you. I know that you guys had sunshine cookies, you had songs, you had, what else? What were you doing? Either of you?
We also had the children to go outside. The parents went out with them. They looked up. They were really excited about it. It was amazing to see how many children, though, did not want to look up at all. They walked with their heads down to the buses. But not only did they play games, they drew the eclipse. They had different STEM activities that they worked on so that they understood how the eclipse works.
Well, it was an interesting day. I had anticipated fear among the older students. Some of them did not want to go outside at all, of course you didn't have to. But some of our teachers, particularly those that teach science and math, were engaged and they had projects outside. I don't know, but remember, the temperature started to drop, and when we went outside, they were okay. But as the sun it became a little darker and the temperature, then they thought that, is it something going to happen? And I said, well, no, we're going to be okay. But we weren't outside long. That wasn't an experience that they were that interested in, but okay. It was just interesting. But we did have parents that came in, because if you came in, then we gave you glasses, they were outside with us, and everyone from the annex, etc. So it was an interesting experience. I don't know about in Indianapolis, where it was totally dark, but here, the younger you were, the more enjoyable you thought, but the older children began to think, and one of them asked me, Dr. Davis, is this climate change? Well, it isn't, but it did show me that they were thinking about it, and they were trying to figure out what would happen. But as things began to change outside, they were pretty much, they wanted to come back in, and so that was the solar eclipse. But at the Madison and the Arcadia, a wonderful day. Most of the parents at the Richton did not want their children to go out at all, the tiny ones. And I'm not sure that concept that they would get that, but a different day in different places, but an experience. That's what I told them. We've had an experience. They said, okay, can we go back and say something? But the science and math teachers stayed outside. They were, one of the teachers, not only was he was measuring the amount of coverage, and he had devices that he had been working on for the past 5 or 6 years, waiting for another eclipse, and he was really involved in this, and he's now in the process of writing a paper for an educational journal about his experience. So everyone participated in this in a different way. I personally enjoyed it, and thanks goes to Craig England for all of our glasses, because we were equipped, but different feelings depending upon the age and also what the parents told. It was obvious that some of the parents said, do not look, and so the kids did. They were outside, had the glasses, but that's okay, because you should do what your parents want you to do and not do what they don't want you to do. So that was our experience.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and I'm glad we circled back to it. I want to salute the staff that made it possible for us to have the glasses and the materials, the faculty that focused on the teaching moment and opportunity. I'm really excited about how our district, just positively turned this into, again, a teaching moment. I'm looking at the Oreo slices representing the moon, blocking the sun. That's fantastic. Instead of it just being a caution about what not to do, with young people, they have interest and they are excited. Many schools, the maximum time of the eclipse was only 10 minutes. What I wasn't aware of, the fact, of course, is that the passing all the way over was maybe 45 minutes, almost an hour. More than the attention span of a child. But the other point, though, is that some schools were letting out at this time. And fortunately, I did see some children with their glasses on and so forth, but others in other places where perhaps they didn't maybe take a proactive approach to it, didn't give the glasses and so forth, missed an opportunity. And I'm glad that we fully embraced the opportunity. We have future astronomers and future astrophysicists, I hope, and that engaged maybe their excitement about the stars, and knowing to not stare at the sun, anytime in general, but not to fear it, but to understand the reasons why and understand how science works. So I salute everyone on that. I thought that was fantastic.
And could we also have a special moment to thank Mr. Light for his superb photography that he shared with us?
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Any more comments or questions from the board? Hearing none on the superintendent's report. Thank you, Dr. Davis.
Thank you.
Dr. Davis, is there any legislation? Oh, no.
There will be by Friday of this week, and we're monitoring legislation that affects us.
Very good. Thank you. We'll then move on to new business. And we'll the board will address the resolution regarding approval of change orders. Is there a motion?
Mr. President, move to approve the resolution regarding approval of change orders. Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yes, sir. Mr. England.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Yes, in your packet in tab 7, you will see a copy of that proposed resolution. So anytime we do a construction project, the board approves a contract with various companies. If at any time there needs to be a change to that contract, so as you get into the project, you start digging, you find something you didn't know, you open a wall, find something you didn't know, items might be on back order, etc. Changes invariably have to be made throughout a project as you move forward. So the law allows for changes to be made up to 10% of the original contract value without having to go back out and rebid. So we always stay under that 10%, make sure that there's no changes that exceed that 10% amount. And incidentally, changes can be positive or negative, so either way. In addition, the law also says that the board has to approve change orders over $10,000. Now that limit has been raised to $25,000. So between $25,000 and 10% is actually a board approval. However, in the school district world where we're doing projects in a matter of 2 months, it's virtually impossible to have to come back to the board to make change orders and get the projects done on time. So what our law firm has recommended in the past and continues to is that there's a resolution on file with the board delegating that authority to the superintendent. And then what you'll see on the very last page, and this is a 2-sided document, so it's the very back side of the last page, you'll see a change order authorization form. And this is just a checklist that they've now incorporated into the law as well that talks about that. Basically, it's a checklist to make sure whoever is recommending and approving the change order is meeting all the criteria of what a change order should be. So essentially what would happen is the architect would make a recommendation. You see their signature line down there. Then Mr. Walzak, and then ultimately Dr. Davis, and then the board would get a copy of it. So essentially what this is doing is delegating the authority to make those changes, again, up to that 10% amount to the superintendent and her designee. And then report that information to the board so the projects can get done on time.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
Mr. President, I'm just wondering who would be the designee? Would that be Mark?
Yes.
Okay.
And just, you're well aware that we have many projects that are be taking place. As a matter of fact, some of the air conditioners have started to arrive already. This Thursday and Friday, some of the contractors will be on top of the roof simply looking at the condition of the roof and how the air conditioners were attached, and so therefore trying to anticipate how much damage. So this process has already started, so it's possible, we don't know that. But let's say that I think the amount that we had allocated for roofs was $1.2 million. Suppose we find a roof that has a lot more damage and we need to address that, then of course we still have to get bids and that kind of thing, but a change order would be recommended by Mr. Walzak. It would come to me, I would share it with you. But we're on a strict timeline this summer, and usually anyway, but this summer there are a lot of things that need to be done. And continuing work that began last summer, particularly at the Huth. So we're moving. Connected to this, but kind of a piece of bad news, as the trucks come in, and we have the storage now in the annex, so these are huge air conditioners, but we have a place to put them. They're coming in on trucks that are doing damage to our parking lot out there. So it doesn't look as if we'll be able to resurface the parking lot this summer because it's counterproductive to resurface and then another truck comes in, and so this is going to be an ongoing process. So I do anticipate it will be late fall, perhaps even Christmas, before we'll be able to do what we need to do because there can't be any traffic out there, but it was on our list of things to complete, not just the air conditioning, but the resurfacing. But we saw that immediately as the first truck came in because it was carrying an air conditioner that was 42,000 pounds. And it made an indentation. And so when those that do the resurfacing looked at this, then they know that we're going to have to wait until we finish this total delivery process before we can do it. But to me, that's minor compared to the children being comfortable in the building because we have replaced the air conditioner. So we'll just have to put up with looking at the parking lot as it is for this summer.
Any other questions from the board? Hearing none, Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Gordon?
Aye.
Mrs. McCray?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Hutchinson?
Aye.
Mrs. Ware?
Aye.
Is there a motion regarding game time?
Yes. Move to approve the contract with Game Time for the removal and replacement of 3 play structures in the amount of $135,959.60.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Thank you, Mr. President. At the Madison, and I'm not clear if it's all through at the Madison, playtime? Playtime.
At the Madison, yeah.
Right. We've needed, from our perspective, more creative equipment on the playground. I mean, at some point, I think, our weather will be such that the children will be going out consistently on our playgrounds. And when we looked at the Madison, we're more than dissatisfied. So that is one of our goals that we are going to replace. At the Madison, there are 3 different areas for the children to go out and, they use the swings, etc. But now there are some more sophisticated kinds of equipment that, because the world is changing. But it is time that we replace that equipment, and so we're asking for your permission. Actually, I'm pleased at the price, considering I'm pleased at the price. But that is something that we want to do this summer, and in addition to the air conditioning for the Madison. We don't have anyone here this evening, but I'm sure that they will inform them, Mrs. Houston and Mr. Valdez. But it's equipment for recess.
That's great.
Very good. Is there any more discussion from the board? Hearing none, ask the secretary to call the roll.
Mrs. Gordon? Aye. Mrs. McCray?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Hutchinson?
Aye.
Mrs. Williams?
Aye.
Is there any old business?
No, sir.
Board members, do you have any issues or reports?
Mr. President?
Yes, Mrs. Ware.
Can we look into if there's a way we can do some kind of compensation for the teachers who participated in the book? The thing last week was very, very nice, and I know, though, to publish it takes time, and I know their names are out there, but I think if possible, it would be nice to do something else for the teachers and staff who took the time out to help contribute to make our district look as well as they have.
I agree.
Very good. Perhaps we could direct Dr. Davis to bring a recommendation to us, bring a proposal to us
Yes,
for
sir.
consideration.
And if I could invite the teachers to come to the May meeting and be presented to the board. I think that it would be a lovely idea, in addition to whatever we decide to do now. But I will communicate the recommendation to you, but to invite them to a meeting. If that be your will, then I'd love to do that.
Sure. I would think maybe we review the proposal first and then invite them second.
But then we'll invite them June. Well, let's figure out the date, but yes, I will submit, but since we have to vote on that, then we'll make June our date to invite them, and perhaps we'll do something, because we are running retirees. That'll be a nice moment. We'll have the retirees, we'll have refreshments downstairs, and we can also honor those teachers that submitted. So June will be the date, but I will bring the recommendation to May board.
Very good. Thank you. Other reports and issues?
That's the question. Dr. Davis, for the book signing, our refreshments, were they supplied by our kitchen?
No, well, we have a kitchen here. They really weren't things that were cooked. They were cookies and food and that kind of thing.
The
We can
rats.
easily do that downstairs. No, it was not from Quest.
But it was an in-house.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good.
Here are no other board member issues or reports.
Mr. President,
Yes.
if I could, I'd like to ask Ms. Foster to please look at how we communicated the event to the board members and why Member Gordon did not receive, and so that I can give a response, because you should have.
It's technology these days. It could
Well, I
just be
know, but we
something-
can-
So,
We can correct it, so it doesn't happen again.
Did Mr. Light send Eclipse pictures too? You said something about pictures?
Yes.
I didn't get
No,
that.
he didn't send any eclipse pictures.
Yeah, I received some.
I did too.
I
Email.
received.
Did you?
So maybe my email's just
They were
messed up.
emailed.
What I'll do is I'll double check your email with Mr. Evans so that we
But
can.
he said he did send them out, so we'll check
Yeah.
our commit. Maybe we'll send some test emails to you. That's what happens.
Thank you.
Say Derek Light.
Very good. Thank you. So we will now move to audience to visitors. This is a time for visitors present today to come forward and have an audience with the board. If there are any members of visitors here to come forward and have an audience with the board, now is your time. Seeing none, I will move to the portion and entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
For a second.
Second.
And we are adjourned.
Sent to the cat.
Yesterday, Mr. Dean's record.